Everybody, Roll the Lines UK, Matt here with Ash. We are just getting set up here and we are just hanging about in the aftermath of the college football podcast. I've just done all my little bits and pieces for that, so just trying to load everything up. Hope everyone's well. Ash, how you doing, mate?
I'm doing okay. Since obviously listening to the college pod while running on the treadmill at the gym helps motivate me, knowing that once upon a time my college team was good, but now we're almost as bad as seemingly Villa's ability not to concede penalties in European games. But we move.
I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, but unfortunately it was destroyed by someone as well, so you know.
True.
I'm definitely mixing metaphors there, but never mind. I don't care. I just don't care. Hope everyone's well. Any questions, get them in. We're just going to hang out for a bit. Mark says Lions 7-1. Yeah, baby! 8-1's coming up. I don't see any possibility for a loss here. I'm saying this before the recorded part of the show, so I don't care. No chance of losing this game. None. Zero. Not happening. That good enough for you, Ash?
Yeah.
Tempting fate, just enough. And by just enough, I mean we're fucking winning this game. I absolutely love it. Oh, it is a bit of a shame that Jarrett Patterson looks like he's going to be back, because I was really enjoying watching Kendrick Green on tape. And by that I mean, wow, what a crock of shit.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Hang on. I remember, God, I've got to double check this. I'm remembering this from, I think it's the Detroit Line breakdown. Let me just double check. Oh, yeah. Kendrick Green, pass blocking grade for the season, 4.3.
But he's only played a handful of games, and he started last week because Kenyon Green's injured and Jarrett Patterson's injured. And he went up against...
To be the Jets, so he'll be up against Quinnen Williams, won't he?
Quinnen Williams, but the other one as well also wrecked him, and I can't remember who that was.
Oh, God, yeah.
They both had him every single time.
Oh, Kinlaw.
It was awesome. Yeah.
It was Kinlaw.
Kinlaw, and then the backup edge rusher as well had him for a sack through that area as well, which was... Clemens, yeah. And Leonard Taylor had him a few times as well. And Solomon Thomas had him a few times.
That's how you know he's bad, when Leonard Taylor's beaten him.
Leonard Taylor has low-key had a okay year. I'll just say that right now. He has...
I know.
For a UDFA, he has exceeded expectations.
Well, okay, based just on the UDFA bit, yes. Based on where people were on him 12 months ago, maybe he's disappointed a bit.
Well,
I know we were down on him.
I'm just saying that he's played 123 snaps and he's got an above 60 grade for his season. And you know what? There are some defensive tackles that we've had in our rotation as developmental pieces, and we would have killed for a more than 60 grade for some of those players while they were playing.
There's one that's springing to mind, but I can't remember his name. I'm gonna have to go back to 20.
Well, I'm kind of thinking Broderick.
Oh, I was thinking way back. I was thinking, was it 2019? There's this particular player I'm thinking of, but I can't remember his name. It wasn't him. What was his? He was like an interior drafted from Ohio State in the last round. Was it 2019 draft?
Hey to everyone in the chat. I see you, Grandizer, Mike D. Barker, Danny Mack, Brent, and the Mark 301, and all the guys in the college show as well. If you haven't come and said hi so far, saw you in there as well. Great show as always by the boys.
Deshaun Cornell.
Oh, yeah. Former 7th round pick, got banned, came back, didn't get cut until eventually he did, but it took a long time for that to come. Yeah, I remember.
He played one game for us.
Yeah, that was the extent of his career. I'm assuming he's out of the league entirely now.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not done anything since we released him from RIR in 2022. The reason he stuck out to me when we were saying Nintendo, though, is Cornell was the number one defensive end prospect in Minnesota and number 7 overall defensive end in his recruiting class 2015. But then,
Just goes to show you that, promise at the high school level doesn't translate to actual effort.
yep.
There you go. Grandize asks whether we have a final take on Lions in free agency, happy, unhappy, or other takes. Well, free agency continues. Obviously, we are 31 in the priority for waivers right now, and I didn't realise until listening to the midweek mailbag for POD that everyone's subject to waivers, even vets.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
only after the trade deadline, which makes so much sense because it was so weird and so accepted that you get to week 17 and no hope of teams who were going to cut someone anyway or not re-sign someone at the end of the season would cut people so they could go and sign for the ring-chasing team of their choice. It's like, I'm sorry, but you ban that in fantasy football. So why would you allow it in the real league? It's so weird.
True.
So obviously that's ongoing, but we're not likely to actually get any joy there. And I love Dan saying we're going to raid some practice squads, and it's like, if there's someone good enough on a practice squad to come and play for this team, you'd be doing that already. Like, anyone in a practice squad is not really, unless they're getting elevated, putting on good enough tape to get claimed. So I think that is at best hopeful by Dan. But we got the one guy that pretty much universally everyone wanted. That's key. So I'm fairly pleased. Would I have liked another one? Yes, but would I have traded a 7th round pick to ensure that we could have got Yannick Ngakoue? Probably not. So I'm kind of fine. What about you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Riz put it quite well because obviously people with the news that we're going to go into in a minute, the recent roster news, open roster spot, people have obviously putting 2 and 2 together with his release from the Baltimore practice squad, and he's put it quite bluntly that he's not as good as anyone else who've got on the squad, and surely being on 5 teams in 3 years proves that.
To be on the Lions, you've got to be fundamentally sound against the run.
Mm-hmm.
He can't defend the run. I am confused as to why the Panthers have kept former number Jadeveon Clowney. I don't get it. Like, the thing is, Clowney's problem was never attitude or anything like that. I don't think he's just has never really elevated from where he was coming out of college, which was a pretty disruptive player who was pretty good against the run. And he's still a above average pass rusher in this league. And he's getting paid not very much. He is under contract next year, so Carolina are keeping him thinking that they could do something next year and they want him to be a part of that, then fine. But they could have probably picked up a similar amount of capital to what we gave for Zadarius Smith. Like, I probably would have given a 5 straight up. Yeah.
The issue with that potentially for them though is that you look at their depth chart at edge rusher, and it ain't exactly pretty.
But they should want to tank. So like, who cares what their depth is? Just develop someone young who's going to be there next year.
That's the thing. They've got no youngsters. They've got DJ Johnson, who was a 3rd round pick last year. But then the others are Charles Harris, Cam Gill, and Thomas Incoom.
I'm a huge fan of Thomas Incoom. Huge fan. Love him. Think he's great. Give him more reps. And you know what? If we can go bargain bin shopping on the practice squads, so can they.
True.
Just get someone. They could sign Isaac Ukwu tomorrow. Why not? Or Mitchell Agude. Give him a go. Salem Bad Moon Rising says Clowney made an average career out of one highlight hit in college. I respectfully disagree. I think Clowney was I think in the class that he was in, he was a deserving number one pick at the time, personally. But, you know, the great thing about the draft is that no one agrees with anyone else, and that's what makes it awesome. So that's fine. Grandad said Jalen Coker would have maybe been a good trading piece. I don't really know about anything about Coker, to be honest. But Thielen...
He is the guy from the Panthers who's breaking out. That's basically the reason why they felt they could trade away Mingo, and somehow they got what they did for
It's
Mingo.
unbelievable. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Grandad said, surprised that the Dolphins didn't trade Calais Campbell and Emmanuel Ogba. I mean, there's no reason why Campbell can't come back next year for someone. I mean, the way he's playing now, he's not exactly going to lose a step next year. He's already past the pale, and he's still really good. So why is he going to get any worse? It depends whether he's got the will, but,
yeah,
you know, Ogba's fair enough, but, I mean, maybe he's just not good enough to attract an offer, even at a low end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people just don't care enough. I don't know. But anyway.
Oh, God.
Brent
looking
said...
at that 2014 draft now that Clowney was in, and I'm like, yeah, I agree at the time, but Jesus, looking at some of the players that could have got in that position.
Yeah, well, who else? Who's the number one player in that draft that they could have taken?
Aaron Donald.
Okay. Oh,
And
you mean the Aaron Donald taking one pick after the Lions picked?
Yes, either that or Khalil Mack, who went 5th overall. But then saying that, you look at the top 5, like the first 4 picks, all busts. Clowney, yes. Greg Robinson, Blake Bortles, Sammy Watkins.
Okay, but Bortles has made an excellent name for himself in TV.
I was about to reference The Good Place. Yeah.
One of my favourite TV shows ever. Right. Ant has told us to get on with it and he'll join us after he has eaten. So I think we should crack on. Grandad said Panthers should be real sellers. It won't give them a lot of high draft picks, but mid to later rounds are better for a team that may be drafting 1 overall. I agree. I totally agree. And the thing is, if Bryce Young, who's come back and actually looked like he's gained some confidence again, starts getting back on track, then he might actually be tradable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for some meaningful capital. Someone might give, like, a 3rd round pick for him or something. Like...
The only issue is, who do you see winning more games here on out? Carolina or New Orleans?
It's hard, isn't it? Because the answer to the question which of them is a better team is really obvious in terms of personnel. Yes. But, I mean, I think it's a great credit to Carolina that they beat the Saints last week. And also, they seem to just be playing hard each week. And they're also paying some guys. There's nothing better for a franchise than, like we did, seeing some good play and then paying their players for that good play. So Chuba Hubbard getting paid $9 million a year. I mean, I don't think he's worth it, but he's a fucking good running back. And saying to the rest of your team, I don't care whether we're bad, you play well, you will get paid at this organisation, is a good way of creating a winning culture. So I'll probably say the Panthers, because the Saints kind of feel like they've checked out of the season.
Yeah. Well, Campbell, that's the thing. I'm looking now, I'm on Tankathon, which obviously it's that time of year if we're talking draft picks. Currently, Carolina are 4th, New Orleans are 3rd, because they're both 2-7, and Carolina's had the high. Yeah.
Brian Shooks just said the stat I was just about to say, which I heard on Locked On NFL Scouting this week, that this is the first time for over 20 years that every single team has their own 1st round pick after the trade deadline.
Yes.
Which is just amazing. It's really cool in a kind of boring way. Like, the trade of 1st round picks is always a bit fun when it happens for whatever player it is. But the fact that everyone's in their original positions mean that where they get seeded does matter. So,
yeah. Ooh, I'm just looking at what Tankathon's got mocked for us on a bike. Hell, I'm there for it. Princely out of Ole Miss, and then Barrett Carter out of Clemson. I'll take it.
I wasn't a fan of Princely when I watched him last year, but I don't know how he's changed.
He's been good. It's like I haven't seen too much Ole Miss, but 7.5 sacks already this season. And like Ole Miss, last time I looked, they were up there. I think it was them and LSU were the top 2 teams in the SEC. Well, I could be completely wrong there.
All right, should we get on with this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good name. Apart from maybe could we make it bands related?
You tell me. I don't know. I just went out for that because obviously it's their special uniforms. Because
I
was going to do beating your greens because obviously the 2 left guards, but
okay. So I'm thinking of calling it "If You Don't Know Me by Now," but I don't know if you get that reference.
No, unfortunately not.
It's
Mick, fine.
It's Mick Hucknall's Simply Red.
Oh, for God, dude! Damn it!
Oh,
because of course
the
stars.
Yeah, I don't know if Simply Red like known in America.
We'd have to ask.
Oh, the
guys,
Lothario himself, Mick Hucknall.
Let me have a look. Let me see how high they charted in
So If You Don't Know Me by Now is actually a cover of Harold Melvin in the Blue Notes, apparently.
Yeah.
So If You Don't Know Me by Now by Simply Red won a Grammy. It won a Grammy for the best R&B song of 1989. R&B.
And it charted #1 in the US.
Oh.
But only peaks at #2 over here.
Yes, it wasn't a #1, which I think is an absolute shocker. Grandad said all that his Texans content creator follows stopped, which is a real shame. We've got a friend who does lots of really good Texan stuff, is a great super fan and speaks really well, but I've just been so snowed under, I wouldn't have been able to arrange anything, even if it was laid to me on a plate, to be honest. So there we go. Right. We're doing this. I'm leaving it as Seeing Red because it's more simple. I don't want to be too obfuscating, which is one of my favourite words ever. Anyway. Okay, here we go.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to another edition of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 304, Seeing Red. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside Ashley Soden, soon to be joined by Anthony Fitzpatrick. Ash, how you doing, mate?
Doing good. Obviously, excited for this week, to considering the title. It's a special uniform for the Texans. Kind of half wish we were wearing alternatives as well, just to give it that kind of like colour rush kind of vibes from a few years ago. But at the same time, we're seeing red because some of the players have got to avenge what happened the last time we faced the Texans, though us fans are probably a bit happier with what happened after that result.
Was the last time we faced the Texans in Houston the Will Fuller game?
And what happened after the game in terms of jobs?
Oh, was that the end of the Patricia era?
That was the end of the Quintitia era.
See, I just remember it as the Will Fuller game. Like, because he absolutely went off, and then a year later, everyone was saying, I think we should trade for Will Fuller. And I'm like, you mad, bro?
Yep. And that was probably, as well, a certain Cleveland quarterback's last good performance in the NFL.
I have no idea who you mean. Erased from my memory is that absolute twonk. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that arsehole. We are here to talk about Lions at Texans in a battle of very much greater than 500 teams. Lions 7-1. Houston have not yet had their bye. They are 6-3. We're going to preview that game right after some news, and right after telling you that you have to join our Discord channel. You must. I've told you that you must come. So, with that said, the link is in the live chat right now. Great community of Lions fans. Please do come and join us there. College Football Podcast aired about 2 hours ago on our YouTube channel. It is on our audio provider already for the audio podcast, so if you do want to go and listen to that before you listen to us, then please feel free to go ahead. It's a great show. It was a very active week of college football, and as college football is starting to draw to a close and bowl season is almost upon us, if you want to hear about the next crop of potential Lions players, there's no better place to go and get your content. Please don't forget to like the show, sub to the podcast, all that good stuff. You guys know what to do by now. And Lions Nation Unite, please go and support them as well. Herman Moore's project to bring the best in Lions content creators together. Ant does lots of good work with them, so it's worth you supporting him on there. With Twitch affiliated, YouTube monetizes the tip jar down below in the YouTube description. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, showing some love that way would be fantastic for us. Right, let's crack on with this. There's been a fair amount of news this week. The Lions have opened the 3-week practice window for players on injured reserve for the safety of Fatu Melifonwu. Everyone will remember he's my guy from last year. He did very, very well before having a really poor off-season and then going on injured reserve. We could do with him back. We need a blitzing nickel corner. And talking of nickel corners, the cornerback Emmanuel Mosley has had his practice window open too. Had a fantastic off-season. Kind of converted from outside corner to nickelback. Was going to be our starter this season. Of course, Amik Robertson's done really well in relief in that role. But Mosley coming back, that would provide us some really great depth inside and out. Also signed to the practice squad, linebacker Abraham Beauplan and defensive lineman Chris Smith. Of course, they were both waived last week. They do get through waivers and revert to our practice squad. And we have also signed to our practice squad the linebacker Ezekiel Turner. He is a career special teamer. I think he's had less than 100 snaps on defense in his career. He was at the Arizona Cardinals between 2018 and 2023 and at the Texans this season before being waived. He's a starting special team player. I think he's an all-phase special teams player. So with Jalen Woods-Mabin not having practiced yet so far this week, he is in contention to potentially get elevated as a replacement for him. In other roster news, Isaiah... What? Did that just happen?
Yeah.
The wide receiver...
half an hour.
Wow. Isaiah Williams has been waived, the wide receiver. That is a real shock, especially with... What? Okay, I don't understand that. He's done really well. Hopefully he reverts to our practice squad.
Wow. Yeah, hopefully he will, though he was one of our most chased free UDFAs, hence the amount of guaranteed money we gave him on that contract. But I think with the emergence of Tim Patrick, with Khalif getting up to speed, and with Allen Robinson getting there, he was already kind of a game day inactive, like Colby Sawsdor was, like Giovanni Manu was, like Mahogany is right now. So I think with terms of roster construction, they're going to try and risk him getting to the practice squad and then re-sign him on there if we can. Because, spoiler, there's a couple of theories on it. Number one is that Broderick Martin, who's coming to the end of his IR activation window, might be signed to the active roster from IR, or Saint Silstra, who's used up all of his elevations at this point. If we want him to play, which we probably do, considering he's been playing fullback and that, we need to sign him to the active roster. So it's either Broderick or Zylstra going to take Isaiah Williams' spot, which is unfortunate because he was our best wide receiver in pre-season. Really good kick returner, really good special teamer. Just look at the block he laid for Khalif on his punt return touchdown. I think it was. No, it was Dorsey's.
So Isaiah Williams had a really good kick return himself on a kickoff.
Yeah. And then, with Dorsey, he did the block for Dorsey on the Titans one as well.
Yeah.
As for the others, Beauplan Smith were both on the active roster last week. Turner, as you say, JR replacement if we need it. And then Mosley's going to be... I'm happy Mosley's kind of come back because, as you say, great depth. He probably won't start for us because he'll need to come up to speed. But let's say, God forbid, anything happens to one of our starting corners, he probably comes in before Rakestraw, before Vildor, before Dorsey at that role. And then if he just gives us safety depth, as you say, great blitzer, which we kind of need since Hutch is not around. But he's good against the run as well. And with what's happened recently with our defense, having a true box safety will be useful because Branch can do it, but he's more of a coverage box safety. Kirby is a single high safety and Brandon Joseph is a single high safety. So he just gives us a skill set on the back end that we've kind of been sort of missing recently.
Yeah, I quite agree. I think Iffy is a bit of a unique player, actually. He doesn't do a lot of what we want him to do well, and that's going to hold him back in his career, to be frank, because every off-season they're going to try and get him to do something new, and I'm not sure whether it's going to work. But the qualities he does bring, even as a specialised player, are really high. Like, we haven't had what he can provide since Branch played as the nickel last season.
Yeah.
So to have someone who can do that and have Branch behind him is super valuable. And in fact, in really specialised situations, you could see Kirby as a single high with a double slot with Branch and Metaphorical on the other side of each other. And that would be really interesting because you could drop either one, you could bring both. Like, that opens up things so much for three safety sets.
Exactly. It will bring back nickel because we were heavy free safety looks last year, especially when we had CJ as well. Because as you say, gives you that versatility. Like we all know, Glenn, as a former DBs coach, really likes utilizes DBs. So having Iffy back might provide us a bit more nickel because obviously right now we are leading the league in base formation usage. Nickel and dime have both fell off this year in terms of our usage. So having Iffy back, because as you say, that ability to blitz, run, defend, and cover, even though coverage is not his best trait, we'll just be able to give us that versatility because, he can basically be an overhang box linebacker if we need him to be, especially in dime sets, because at that point, you've probably taken both like two linebackers off. So you've probably got Anzalone out there. So having Iffy in that sort of third safety role gives you a bit more run defense. So teams don't just run draws on us all the time.
I mean, the thing about Iffy is that he has physical gifts that our other players don't in terms of just how big he is and how long-armed he is. He's not the best at reading plays, but if he's in position to make a play and he's going up against some of those bigger wide receivers, he's got a bit of a better chance of going up against an A.J. Brown or, someone of that ilk than maybe some of the others do, because you just have to do a little bit more to beat someone like that, even if he hasn't got the best technique. Anyway, moving on, and we'll move on to the new tradee, defensive end Zadarius Smith. He's going to wear number 99, which was previously held by Broderick Martin. Martin has now been given 96, which was previously being held by Kyle Pico. I never know which one to say there, but never mind. He obviously is on IR and is not coming back this season, so Martin gets his number instead. I obviously had my say about Smith earlier on in the week, but you haven't. What do you think about the trade?
Told you so. Ever since, even slightly before when Hutch got hurt, when we thought we needed an over edge rusher, Z was the first one I'd mention because he just fits so perfectly. And what we've given up for him in comparison is pittance. Like I was worried we'd have to give up a bit more than that, but to get him to come, for Brad to somehow convince Cleveland to pay a majority of his contract as well, so it opens up financial room in the future. Masterstroke. Would it be nice if we could have got someone else as well, just to give us more depth? Yeah, but we've got a starter. We've got someone who right now will be our best edge rusher, can play in both rush end, big end, slide inside on third downs, which Glenn, who was asked about it today, said they will be planning to do. Just gives us that starter we needed, because right now, as we'll come on to in a second with the next bit of news, our other starting edge is coming back for something as well. So just to have someone starting there is good. And then if he balls out and we want to keep him around next season, then that's both our edge rusher unit started. Pascal can slide into the backup role that he was doing kind of good at. And then if we decide to go and draft another guy to eventually replace Smith, when we can ease them in, and it'll be a good news for them.
Yeah, all right. The last bit of news we have is the disclosure by Josh Pascal of exactly what's kept him out the last two games, and far be it from just a mere illness. He disclosed he had a small non-cancerous mass found in his shoulder in his annual checkup. He had a fairly serious malignant melanoma in 2018, which was removed. He's fine. Obviously, he got drafted pretty high, so there were no medical concerns about that during the draft process. but it did mean he now has to have annual checkups for anything untoward. Something was discovered. He had surgery to have it removed. He is expected to be back this week. But, Ash, Pascal's been so unlucky with injury. He really just didn't need something like this. I mean, he's already kind of gone through enough at this stage.
Exactly, yeah, because he had that, which meant he had to medical redshirt, and then he only played one more season before coming out. And then, of course, the overdraft him, he gets the non-sports hernia, so he can't really practice then. And yeah, there's just been little niggles here and there that have kept him back, so this just pushed him back a bit further. But the kind of good news for him, if he's back hit now, because obviously he had it removed, he's had 2 weeks to kind of get his strength back, because obviously he's had his shoulder operated on. You're going to have to build up a bit of muscle there, because obviously you can't use that for a bit. Sliding back into a starting role, so hopefully he can kind of hit the ground running. And as we mentioned on the review for the last game, we've kind of missed him a bit, not so much for the pass rushing, but more because he's a good run defender. And you've seen the past couple of weeks of run defense, especially at the edges, has been a bit suspect. So having him back will hopefully help hold down the edges, force running backs back into the inside where the DTs and the linebackers can kind of clean them up, rather than them hitting the edge and then getting big explosive plays.
Mm. Yeah, him coming back is going to be a big thing for us. He maybe has never quite hit the heights that we wanted him to hit as yet, but he is still an league average edge rusher, and for what he brings to the team, which you've adequately described. So him coming back is big for us, considering our lack of depth at the position. If it means that James Houston isn't taking so many reps, that's probably not the worst thing, given what we're asking Houston to do. It can mean then that Houston can go to work being a pass rusher, as opposed to having to defend the run, which is not great. Bit of Houston news for you guys. The tackle Zach Thomas has been claimed off waivers from the Patriots. He was the 6th round pick of the Chicago Bears in 2022 out of the San Diego State Aztecs. He didn't make the grade on the 53 in that year for the Bears, so he was actually picked up by the I want to say Rams, but it just says LA. Yes. It was the Rams.
It is the Rams, yes.
Right, LA Rams. He was there for 2 seasons, but he only played 36 offensive snaps in his time there. Then was cut after 2023, was picked up by the Patriots this season, played 84 offensive snaps for him. So, 2/3 of his snaps in his career have been this season. 61.3 grade so far, not the worst ever. He took starter reps in one game against Houston, in fact, at left tackle. So Houston liked what they saw. They don't have a pressing need at tackle, so it's quite interesting that they've picked him up. But, what do you think?
I'm going to go with the last bit first. Even though he played tackle in college, he's played interior offensive line in the league. He is their version of Colby Sawston, especially since, and I'm looking because I remember him in the draft, Thomas trained with Duke Mayweather in the off-season before getting drafted. He is one of Duke's guys, and for people who don't know, you probably have to scroll back far on the Pride of Detroit podcast feed for this, but when we drafted Colby, they had Duke on, and he is very selective about the guys that he trains, but he's one of the best offensive line trainers in the sphere, kind of like the guy that JMO works with every offseason with his route running. He's that offensive line. He gets former guys in. So I think he's had people like Joe Thomas in before. I think Jason Kelsey's been to some of his clinics. Very highly regarded guys. So if this is one of his guys, it means good things for him. Great run blocker coming out of San Diego State, but his pass protection just wasn't there because he had a habit of leaning and that. And considering the kind of, as we'll get onto in a bit with the preview of their offense, the issues that the Texans are having on their offensive line, like left tackle sorted for them, Larry Tunsil and former draft crusher of mine, Blake Fisher's there. But everyone else is kind of iffy, as we alluded to kind of in the pre-show. Left guard's an issue for them. Center, not so good. Right guards, as we'll get into in a minute there, right guard is currently limited. And then right tackle is a bit of an issue for him with Titus Howard, the former first round pick from 2019. And then former Lions draft coach Nick Broker out of Ole Miss. He could honestly come in and be a good backup for them because right now they don't have a lot of decent depth. Though that's true of everywhere in the NFL, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think it's going to move the needle in this game particularly, but I just wanted to bring you guys the attention to that. So let's talk Texans, shall we? They are 6-3, but their resume is not the hottest. They have, I would say, one quality win. Let's go through those now in order. They started off with wins at the Indianapolis Colts and versus the Chicago Bears before losing at the Minnesota Vikings. They beat the Jacksonville Jags at home and then the Buffalo Bills at home, which is the quality win for me. A win at the New England Patriots, a loss at Green Bay, a win versus Indy, so that's the sweep of them, their nearest challengers for the division title, and a loss at the New York Jets last Thursday night, which of course means they come into this game with some extra rest. In this game, the Lions are favoured 3.5 points on the spread. At -190, Houston are +160. That means that the Lions are 3.5 point favourite. And Houston are quite banged up, as Ash alluded to. The Lions, firstly, did not practice Jalen Reeves-Maybin, Malcolm Rodriguez so far this week. Similar to last week for Malcolm. And was Jalen Reeves-Maybin out last week? I can't remember. Was this
No, I believe he got... I think he got injured in the Titans game. We didn't see what it was. He was out last week, I believe.
Yeah. Zadarius Smith has not yet practiced this week. This is because he hasn't had the bye week where he was. So this is us giving him extra rest and time to acclimatise in the area. They haven't decided whether he's going to actually play this week. But you kind of got to play this week because what are you trading for him for? So limited in practice today was Taylor Decker, today being Thursday. If you're listening to this after the fact, Decker practiced on Wednesday. So this is a new injury for him. Fingers crossed he will be okay. It's a shoulder injury for Decker that he's carrying. On the Houston Texans side, haven't practiced so far this week. Defensive end Will Anderson, defensive tackle Foley Fatukasi, guard Kenyon Green, running back Damian Pierce, linebacker Jake Hansen, and then wide receiver Nico Collins has not had his 21-day clock started yet, so he can't practice. He was expected to start practicing this week with a view to playing this game. Now it looks unlikely. Limited in practice, the linebacker Aziz Al-Shair, defensive end Derek Barnett, defensive end Dylan Horton, safety Jimmy Ward, defensive end Jerry Hughes, cornerback Jeff Okuda, whose clock was started on Monday. He's on IR, of course, therefore. And then full practice, guard Shaq Mason and interior offensive lineman Jarrett Patterson. So on injured reserve for them so far this year. The notable names are Nico Collins and then Stephon Diggs is done for the year now. Jeff Okuda, I just mentioned, had his clock started, but he's still on IR for the moment. It hasn't been activated. Quarterback Case Keenum. Defensive end Jerry Hughes, I'm presuming he's had his clock started because he...
Yeah, both Monday, yeah.
And then the linebacker out of Alabama, not this year, but last year, I think Christian Harris is on IR as well. I won't go through their team just yet, Ash, but looking at all of their injuries and looking at the games they've played so far this season, do you agree? One quality win and then a bit of a load of dross in there. And that team, high quality personnel, also did really well last year, but man, are they banged up.
Yeah, I completely agree with the one quality win, and so do the analytics. So one that I've been teaching myself kind of this week is something called that place are doing now called Pythagorean wins, which bases it off rankings and that. And then, as you say, kind of like the PFR win-loss where it's not exact. It's kind of like that. They have the Texans with 4.5 Pythagorean wins, which is obviously below what they've got, which suggests that they've had less high-quality wins or they're not been as close as you'd think they would have been, which means they're worse. Yeah, of course, they kind of got victim last week to Aaron Rodgers deciding to become a bit like old Aaron Rodgers, which ain't great. But, and yeah, they are banged up. Will Anderson is their starter one end, starting defensive tackle. Kenyon Green's their starter left guard. Damian Pierce is their RB2. Jake Hansen is their second string linebacker, kind of like Malcolm. Nico Collins is Nico Collins. You'll know him. Aziz yeah, he's a starter. Derek Barnett is the starting the other is a starter, I think, right now with Hughes out. Dylan Horton's his backup. Jimmy Ward is a starter at safety. Jimmy Hughes, when he usually is active, is a starter. Jeff Okuda, well, we all know Jeff Okuda. And then Shaq Mason is their only right guard right now, and Patterson is their backup at centre and some of the guard spots. So, yeah, they've got a lot of players who could play quality snaps for them injured. While for us, JRM does all special teams, but only will then occasionally play snaps on defense. Isn't a really big miss. Malcolm is kind of a big miss. He's a do-it-all guy, does special teams, plays all three spots, and linebacker. Zadarius Smith, well, he's just getting a bit of rest. Hopefully he does play, even if it is sub-package roles. Just get him integrated, because edge is one of those plug-and-play roles. Like the first one is running back. That's why tonight we're going to see Khalil Herbert take quality snaps for the Bengals, despite only being traded on Tuesday. Edge rush is kind of like that. You can basically tell them, don't lose the edge. When it's enough passing down, get to the quarterback. And you're not really going to do too much stunts or twists with him right now. Maybe in the next couple of weeks, you can do some of them with him and Aleem, or him and some of the linebackers. The big miss potentially is Decker, because if Anderson does practice, if Barnett does practice, you're going to have an interesting battle there, because, as I accidentally closed the tab I wanted to go to, great. Because on one side, you're going to have Daniil Hunter going up against Penny Sewell. That's going to be a great match to watch. That means Decker's going up against Will Anderson potentially, or Derek Barnett. He had a bounce back game last week. If he's carrying an injury into this game, going up against Anderson, who is one of the best edge rushers in the league after being drafted last year, Derek Barnett, while perhaps not at the heights he was at with the Eagles a couple of years ago, is still a good edge rusher. Might be a bit of an issue, but the thing is Decker at 80% of a shoulder injury better than Dan Skipper, better than Colby Sorsdal? Probably. So if he doesn't play, it's going to be a real issue on Goff's blind side.
It could be. Right, I want to go through the overall stats, and then I'm going to do something a bit different. I'm going to try and keep all the offensive stuff to one bit, and then all the defensive stuff to one bit, because I've found it jarring to kind of go through the entire depth chart, then split it into offensive stats, defensive stats, then offensive thoughts, defensive thoughts. Apologies if you have also thought that is a bit weird. I will try and streamline the process. So, this team statistically is the 9th overall team by PFF, 11th in DVOA, 14th in EPA. On offense, PFF have them 12th, DVOA have them 23rd, and EPA have them 18th. On defense, PFF have them 16th, on DVOA 2nd, and in EPA 8th. And then special teams grades 13th for PFF and 10th for DVOA. So quite a bit of difference there, especially on the defense, with DVOA absolutely loving them, but the other metrics not quite as much. But there we go. Right, on offense, I will just bring up the formation for them now, if this works. There we go. So this is based on, if everyone can go. If they don't, obviously this will change. But quarterback is CJ Stroud. Back up behind him is Davis Mills. Running back Joe Mixon. Behind him, Damian Pierce, Dare Ogunbowale, and JJ Taylor. Wide receivers Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie, and Tank Dell. Behind them, Robert Woods and Steven Sims. Tight end is Dalton Schultz, and behind him, rookie Cade Stover and Tegan Quitoriano. And then the front five are Laramie Tunsil. I've got Jarrett Patterson up there because Kenyon Green is probably going to miss it, but Kenyon Green would start if it was him. Juice Scruggs, Shaq Mason, and Titus Howard behind them. Blake Fisher, Kendrick Green, Jarrett Patterson, and Nick Broker. Statistically, CJ Stroud is a 188 for 296, that's 63.5%, 2,139 yards, 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, passer rating of 91.9, QBR of 56.3, a PFF grade of 75.4. Leading running back is Joe Mixon. 126 carries for 609 yards. That's 4.8 yards per carry and 6 touchdowns. Exceptional average yards per carry. Also 14 of 20 for 115 in the air and a touchdown. That's 8.2 yards per catch. His PFF grade is 81.2. And I mean, the change from Cincinnati really has suited him, I think. Wide receiver Tank Dell is going to be the leading wide receiver in this game for the Texans. Obviously, they have 2 on IR, so it wouldn't have been. But the gadget slot player at the moment, as he is, 6 carries for 30 yards. He's 30 of 47 for 355, which is 11.8 yards per catch and 2 touchdowns in the air. PFF grade of 68.8. Spectacular season last year before injury. He was very, very good. Leading tight end is Dalton Schultz. 26 of 44 for 244. That's 9.4 yards per catch, but no touchdowns for him as yet. PFF grade of 57.5. Other good grades: tackle Larry Tunsil 74.6 and tackle Titus Howard 70.2. Bad grades in there is just the guard Kendrick Green. That's not the one that they would have started, who has the same initial and last name. So this Green only has 66 snaps on the year. He may start if Jarrett Patterson can't go at left guard. His grade is 36.9. His pass blocking grade is less than 5 by PFF. He was ripped a new one in the game against the Jets. So, if he plays, look out, because Lee McNeil is coming through that gap. This team is decidedly average when it comes to the money downs. 38.4% on third down is 16th. They've only gone for it 10 times on fourth down, but they've converted 7 of those. That's 70%, and that's 5th. And then in the red zone, 56.7% of trips leading to touchdowns. That's 15th in the NFL. So average on third down, average in the red zone. Ash, what comes to mind when you think about this Texans offense?
I'm kind of stealing this a bit off Twitter, but the Texans offense looks very much to me like what ours would be like if we didn't have the O-line we did. Stroud is very much Goff-style QB, can deliver the ball on time, on routes, but he's got a bit more mobility and he's obviously younger. Great wide receiver core when they have everyone healthy. Obviously, Nico Killins is on IR. They've lost Stephon Diggs, but Tank Dell's a good receiver. John Mechie is very much like JMO, both because they're speedy wide receivers who went to Alabama. They've got Robert Woods, who is very much kind of like Josh Reynolds was for us, because they're former XY style receivers, XZ style receivers who used to play for LA. There's quite a lot of similarities there. The running backs, they've got Joe Mixon, great veteran guy who's had to come over from another team that used to play in Orange, but Mixon's banged up right now. Pierce is a good running back when he's healthy. There's quite a lot of similarities there that stick out to me, but it's just that offensive line. Like, as I say, left tackle sorted for them. Absolutely great. Like Tunsil, don't know how they. Obviously we do know why he fell to the Dolphins with the infamous gas mask thing, but one of the best left tackles in the league still. And then Blake Fisher, we know how high I was on him.
Mm-hmm.
Juice Drugs, probably a bit better than Josh Myers and would definitely be better than Elton Jenkins was last week for the Packers, but it's not exactly a standout player. Shaq Mason's a good veteran right guard. Right tackle is a bit iffy. Titus Howard, not the biggest on. And then Nick Broker, I haven't seen too much of. He's a guard tackle, flexible guy, bit more athletic, can do some of the outside zone blocking because, surprise, surprise, yet another Shanahan-style system we're coming up against. Which is good for us, which is we've seen them so many times and we're built to beat them, which is great. But that left guard spot with the 2 greens, not exactly great. This is like, to cause people flashbacks, but when we had our players out, we had Jonah out injured and we were playing Dan Skipper at left guard, and then it was Logan Stenberg. That's very much their left guard situation right now. That is the bit I'm attacking. If I'm Terrell Williams, if I'm AG, I'm circling that left guard position. I'm getting a Lee McNeil. I'm sticking him right over his face and just saying, go to work, my son, because Aleem, according to PFF, has been the second best ball rusher in the league this season. And at number 3 was Aidan Hutchinson. Yet again, despite missing half the season so far, he still crops up on these. But yeah, attack that left guard situation. And as I kind of referred to with the scheme, yes, another Shanahan, because the OC, Bobby Slovic, used to be in San Francisco, actually started out as defensive quality control coach at the same time that D'Amico Ryans did, but then switched over to the offensive side of the ball in 2017, worked his way up to passing game coordinator for San Francisco before coming over to Texans last year with Ryans. Was obviously one of the hot head coaching candidates behind Ben Johnson because of the work he did with CJ Stroud, turning him from the second overall pick that certain people on this panel, me, I wasn't too high on him. Admittedly, I helmet scouted him a bit too much. Proved me wrong last year. Him exploding within Tank Dell, turning Nico Collins into a viable wide receiver, the stuff he did with the running game. This season hasn't been there because of the offensive line bits. I think the Texans fans overreacting a bit, calling for his head already. Like, if you let go of him, some other team is going to snap him up in a heartbeat. Hell, I know they've kind of been bitten a bit by San Francisco offshoots in New York, but if one of them, well, obviously the Jets will get a coach, but if the Giants aren't too happy with Dable at the end of the season, Slovic could go there, get a new QB and turn that offense around. So this offense has the ability to put up points, but that offensive line might really hold them back this week with Aline, with DJ Reader, with Pascal back, with Z potentially playing snaps, with Nawaske improving every week at the Sam role, and then with Al-Qadim Mohammed behind it, Isaiah Thomas, James Houston even, and in the blitzing, we've got a lot of ways to attack this offense, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Jets game just because it's the most recent and just to make you aware of the defensive line they were going up against, because that Jets D-line is still very good. Their front 4 is Will McDonald, Javon Kinlaw, Quinnen Williams, and Hassan Reddick, who obviously is back after his holdout. So they weren't going up against a bunch of nobodies, but the Jets wrecked them a new one in this game. I think they suffered 8 sacks and he was pressured on a ridiculous number of his dropbacks. So Stroud was running for his life. And I don't think any of the tackles actually really got off offensive linemen got off scot-free in this game. Let me just double check the stats so I can back up myself with this. So lowest graded player was Kendrick Green, the left guard. Then it was Shaq Mason, the right guard. You had Kenyon Green, who played 22 snaps before he got injured. Juice Scruggs was average. And then you had, Laram Tunsil had a good grade, even though he gave up a sack and a penalty. Blake Fisher had 6 snaps. I don't see the right tackle in these grades. There we go. Titus Howard, 68.5. So I don't think it was a good day overall. I saw that Will McDonald got a sack. You had lots of activity through the middle with Kinlaw getting a sack. Quinnen Williams had himself an absolute day. Reddick, I think, got quite a few pressures through there. So, like Ash is saying, that offensive line struggling against a really good front 4. Can we replicate that is the question. Wide receivers struggled to get separation pretty much all day, and we know this Jets defense is good on the back end. Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, I thought were both very, very good. Quincy Williams, Jamie Sherwood. It's not a bad back 7 over there either, but I think that we've got the guys to go toe-to-toe with them in that regard. I actually think, given the injuries they have at wide receiver, this might be a slightly easier day for our DBs, which actually may give our pass rush a bit more time to get home. Stroud had to dance around back there so often, and actually, I know that people hate Goff's spin move because it looks like a dump truck reversing, but Stroud has like a low-key worse spin move. So he tries to escape to his left quite a lot because that's where the pressure was coming from. And escaping to his left, he'd kind of run backwards looking downfield, and then he'd spin 360 to continue going the same way, and he'd do it on a dime. If he did it slower, he'd make people think maybe he was reversing course, they'd stop, and then he'd reverse back to going forward. But because he does it so quickly, his momentum continues the same way it is. And it means that the sacks on him get cleaned up pretty quickly because the pass rushers are going the correct way all the time. Just a small point. but Stroud can't escape pressure very well. Now, he is a mobile quarterback, and not in a... He's a dual threat quarterback. He likes being a pocket passer, like Ash was saying. He's not unlike Goff in that regard. But there were several times in this game on 3rd and long, 4th and short, where the Jets were just giving him no opportunity to throw the ball downfield, so he took the yards that they were giving him on the ground. He regularly got rushes for first downs. I actually think one of the reasons why the 4th down conversion rate was so good for them, 7 of 10, is because they gave up loads of 4th downs in this game to Stroud with his legs. So I do think that we'll have to account for that, not in a way that we're going to have to account for like Lamar or anything like that, but low-key he's good at it. This game was the Joe Mixon game for Houston. He was their entire offense. And man, was he good. Like, this team, for its offensive line, can't pass block for shit. But man, can it run block. It is a trying offensive line. They get good blocks. The scheme isn't unlike what you see out of San Francisco in terms of the spread offense and trying to not spread offense, that's not what I mean. Outside zone-y type stuff and
West Coast,
yeah. So they're good at it. They create gaps. So can our defensive line not let that happen? Can our linebackers fill the gaps quickly? It's going to be a big question in this game because believe me, Mixon's going to get a lot of run. And teams know this about Mixon, and he's still getting 4.8 yards per carry. And I think Stroud's getting a lot of respect in the passing game, which is opening things up for him. But Stroud shouldn't be having that respect. He's really struggling as a passer at the moment, I think. In this game especially, at the Jets game, his passes were all over the place. He was missing people left, right and centre. And part of that was how much pressure he was under. But part of it is just that with his 2 top receivers out, he's struggling for chemistry with guys who frankly were backups a few weeks ago. So there should be, he's got another week to get that chemistry. But I feel like that should be advantage Lions massively. Also, Stroud took some horrific hits in this game. He got sacked 8 times. The number of times he was face down on the floor and didn't get out for a few seconds, it made you wonder whether he was actually, taking a pounding. It was not good at all. Just trying to see if I had any other notes on here, which I thought was worth mentioning. He naked bootlegs quite a lot, not unlike Goff, in fact. I think that's about it from what I observed in this game. But just thinking about how it matches up with the Lions, how smart they are at the linebacker position, I think is going to really play into this game. Because can you read when they go play action? Can you read when they go run? Because that's where Stroud is best. With him being a pocket passer like what he does and working through the play action game by establishing the run, it's what we do, right? And so in order to counteract that, you need to have really smart linebackers who can read whether it's going to be run or pass in that respect. Anzalone is obviously great with it. Jack Campbell has really come along with it. Actually, the one who wasn't quite as good at it is Derek Barnes. Obviously, now is not playing because he's on IR. So, in some ways, that problem has been removed. If we are reading that accurately, our coverage should be very, very good. It should mean that when Stroud naked bootlegs out, we've got a chance to get a sack, or he's going to have to get rid of the ball quickly. And when they do run the ball, what could be a 5 or 6 yard gain to make a 2nd and short becomes a 2 to 3 yard gain, and it's very manageable for the defense. So linebackers for me in this game for the Lions are going to be really, really key. Ash.
Yeah, the issue for that with the Texans side is they use play action just under 21% of the time, 23rd in the NFL. They aren't falling linebackers at all. If they're doing it, he's great at it. Mainly because linebackers, because they're seeing it and they're thinking, well, they rarely play action. So if they're handing the ball off, it's probably going to be that. They just flows to the ball. So which is part of the reason why...
but that's precisely what does fool people when he does it.
Yeah.
They are balanced.
They are balanced, yeah. But it when it works, they play, yeah. So when they actually do it, it really works. But they're kind of unlike us in so much that because they use it so little, when teams see it, they instantly flow to the ball. So when they do hand it off to Mixon, to Pierce, they're contacted within 1.3 lines of the line of scrimmage. That's 22nd in the league. And they're 31st in stuffed run rate, which is runs that are stopped at or behind line of scrimmage, with 21.5%. So linebacker, because we've got the intelligent linebackers who can read it properly, if they try to run the ball, especially on the outside zones, which they do a lot, because again, Shanahan's scheme, that's what they do a lot. Though they do some gap where they do show the looks, at least where they use pulling guards. So obviously you think of Graham coming along from left guard to come outside, block outside. Because we know they do a zone a lot, it also helps with the play action game, because if we see a pulling guard, 90% of the time, our linebackers hopefully will twig it and be like, they don't really run gaps. So I think they're using this as a decoy. They're going to hit us and they're just going to sit there in the hook zones. So while they're great at play action, it's really at the detriment of their run game. And that's kind of the thing you need to do against us. You can't let our offense be on the field because, we're putting up the most points per game right now in the league. And currently we're on pace to be the 6th best offense in league history. So they're kind of screwed on offense.
Fair. All right, let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. Let me get up the stats for that one. Not the stats, I mean the formation. I keep saying that. Never mind. Here we go. All right, again, this is if everyone goes. And, of course, quite a few of these players are either banged up or not practicing altogether. But they play a 4-3 base defense. I'm going to give you them in nickel because I think they play that a majority of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Starters at the front four are Will Anderson, Tim Settle, Foley, Fatakazi, and Daniel Hunter. The two linebackers are Henry To'o and Aziz Al-Shair. And then the back five are outside corners Derek Stinley and Kamari Lassiter, nickelback safety Jalen Petra, and then safeties Jimmy Ward and Kalen Bullock. The backups behind the front four are Derek Barnett, former Eagle, Danico Autry, who's fantastic formerly of Tennessee. We were linked with him this offseason. Kurt Hinish, no idea. And Dylan Horton. Backup linebackers are Jake Hansen, who I think is really good, played really well against the Jets, and Neville Hewitt, Devin White, yikes, Delshawn Phillips, and Jamal Hill. Backup outside corners, Chris Boyd, D'Angelo Ross, and Kadar Holman. Backup nickel is Miles Bryant, and backup safeties, Eric Murray and MJ Stewart. And just to give you the special teamers to round things off, punter is the former Chief Tommy Townsend, kicker is Kaimi Fairbairn, long snapper John Weeks, and then just some notable players on their practice squad: former Charger Desmond King, Rashad Weaver, the edge defender, quarterback Keaton Slovis, defensive tackle Tommy Togiai, and former Viking tight end Irv Smith are all on their practice squad. Right, Ash, what comes to mind when you have a look at that Houston defense?
Well, first off, right, for putting it in the nickel look, they live in nickel 90% of the time. They are very much a 4-2-5 defense, which again makes sense because of where their coach is from. Because he's a former, so he's mostly worked under, he played as a safety, but he's worked under Jim Schwartz a lot, and he's played in a bit of everywhere, including being the defensive coordinator here, but also for the Dolphins for 2017-2018. But because this is a D'Amico Ryan's sort of defense, it's very much based on what he used to run under Robert Saleh in San Francisco, which means it's a lot of Seattle free coverages, which is why they're up there. Well, that's why cover three is their big base. Zone coverage, and then obviously at man, they run cover one because that's the one you always do, it seems. One gapping, pressure-based. So it's something that we kind of know a lot about. But as a kind of people have hinted to this week, it's a kind of homecoming in a way, even though we're going to their place, for the defensive coordinator, because he was on our coaching staff for 4 years, from 2009 to 2013, as our linebackers coach under Schwartz. So he's got history here, Mr. Matt Burke does. But yeah, very much predicated on good secondary play, which is why they have Jalen Petra, who if Brian Branch did exist, I probably would say he's one of the best slot safety hybrids in the league. They've obviously got Derek Stingley Jr. on the outside, who's a damn good corner. If Sauce Gardner perhaps didn't exist, he would be the best corner in that draft class. Jimmy Ward's a good veteran safety. Kellen Bullock's been playing pretty decent so far this season as a rookie. Kamari Lassiter coming out of Georgia's got some big hype. And then they're predicating on that pressure at the front, which is why they have a damn good top three at edge rusher. Obviously, Daniil Hunter, we all know and hate from his days here in Minnesota. Will Anderson, damn good edge rusher. Obviously, we know a lot about him from the last year's draft class. And then Derek Barnett, good veteran option. Fatakazi's a good nose tackle kind of type. Tim Settle, kind of underrated in his years at Washington and Buffalo as a defensive tackle. They've got all these good players, and it's really coming together. Like last year, they were very much an offensive team, but this year, it's kind of been more the defense that's kind of settled in. Like how it has for us, we've kind of become more of a defensive team the past couple of weeks. But again, there's ways to attack it. We're used to attacking cover three because we face these kind of cover three shells a lot. It's what the Packers like to run. It's what the Bears like to run. We face it a lot. We are built to beat these sort of Seattle Free Fangio style defenses by attacking the linebackers. So the fact that their top one with Aziz Al-Shir might be out. He was out last week. He might be out. That then forces either Jake Hansen, who's currently hurt, or Never Hewitt forward. Means Devin White's going to have to play more snaps as sort of the fifth linebacker. He'll see some more looks. Attack the linebackers, attack the seams between the corners and the safeties. The same old, same old. It's pretty much rinse and repeat every week, it seems, because we just seem to be facing a lot of cover three teams. But yeah, it's a damn good defense, though. So I know I've been predicting a shootout for quite a while, but looking at our defense, looking at theirs, and looking at our offenses, perhaps it's not going to be as high scoring as I predicted in the preseason.
Let me give you the stats on this defense before I go into my thoughts on this. Top defensive tackle is Foley Fatakazi, 1 sack, 21 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits, but a PFF grade of yikes, 38.2. Will Anderson, top edge player. Will he go or not? I don't know. 1 pass defended and a fumble recovery, 7.5 sacks, 27 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, and 10 quarterback hits. PFF grade of 78. The other one on the other side, Danielle Hunter, as we were just discussing, 2 passes defended and a forced fumble, 5.5 sacks, 20 tackles, 7 TFLs, 13 quarterback hits. And he is the top player on their defense in terms of PFF grade with an 81.3. Henry To'oTo'o is the leading linebacker, a pass defended and a sack, 50 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 1 quarterback hit, and a PFF grade of 65.2. Derek Stingley is the former 3rd overall pick in the draft. 3rd? 4th? 3rd? I want to say 3rd. 1 interception, 9 passes defended, 32 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a PFF grade of only 61.8. But he definitely blows hot and cold. I think when he's hot, he's very, very good. And then slot cornerback and safety hybrid Jalen Petra, 1 interception, 7 passes defended, 49 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, a quarterback hit, and a PFF grade of 71.1. Other good grades in there. The other starting linebacker, Aziz Al-Shir, 75.5, and other outside cornerback, Kamari Lassiter. Other bad grades in there, the starting safety, Kalen Bullock, with a 46.7, despite the fact that he's got 3 interceptions on the year. This team is very, very good on the most important down. On 3rd down, they only allow conversions 1/3 of the time. That's 9th in the NFL. But they're not great on 4th down, allowing 9 of 12. That's 30th in the NFL. And they're also not great in the red zone. 16 touchdowns on 23 trips. That's almost 70% conversion rate. And that is 30th in the NFL. And for me, the oddness of being great on 3rd down but not great in the red zone doesn't really make sense. But, you know, I think it's maybe a sign that this team gets teams into 3rd and long, but they're not great at 3rd and short. Because red zone play is all about that sort of condensed area of the field, and that's kind of what 3rd down and short replicates a little bit. So we'll see. But I totally agree with Ash. This is a good overall defense with a good bunch of names that play very well and very hard together. I'm a fan of Tim Settle, as well as Foley Fatakazi in the middle of that defense. They're fairly deep, so Danico Autry and Derek Barnett as backups is very, very good. Obviously, Hunter and Anderson. If Anderson doesn't go, it's a massive blow. And then, as I said, I really like Hansen as that backup linebacker. So with To'o and Al Shire, linebackers I think are pretty good. And then corners, Stingley, like I said, blows hot and cold. But when he's on, he's on. Of course, if you can go after him because he's not playing so great, all the better. And I was pretty high on Kamari Lassiter in this draft process. Not a lot of people agreed with me on this, but I thought he was a solid, high second round graded player. He did go in the second round. I'm not sure if that was with a high second round pick for the Texans, but regardless, he's definitely more than lived up to his billing. You know, if you are, and Lions fans know this with Terry and Arnold, but when you are a rookie cornerback having to start, things can be pretty rocky for you first up. And to have a pretty solid grade out there, 69.2, higher than Derek Stingley, who has been in this team for some time, although of course he's had his injury problems. But when you're outperforming him on PFF grade and you're in a 69 grade territory, that's pretty damn good. So fair play to him. And then, like you say about Petra, he's one of the best slot hybrids. His ball production, his eye for the ball is absolutely fantastic. You know, he very much is in that sort of mold that we would really look for in a team. So good at all levels of the field. What can we go after? Well, there's no gaping holes. The problem is that they had against the Jets is they kind of just crumbled when it mattered most. They got worn down over time. And then, you know, they were 7-0 up in this game. And in the second half, Rodgers just did Rodgers things, which was very annoying for basically everyone. But also they had to contend with Garrett Wilson being an absolute monster. Goff and the way that he plays football is going to be difficult for this team, just because you're forcing him to play out in space. It's going to be a tough one for Amon-Ra Brown going up against Petra all the time, because I think that's going to just be a consistent draw that he has. And can he win that? JMO against an outside corner is going to be a very, very interesting thing for them. So I am hopeful that we can get over the line, but I think JMO is potentially the key to unlocking this game. Can we get Lassiter backpedaling? Because Lassiter doesn't have that speed. The knock on Lassiter in the draft process, he ran a 4.5, and he's a smart player, but his smarts don't extend to being able to cover someone who can run a 4.2. So, you know, that's the matchup that I would be looking at. And Tim Patrick and just the way that he runs routes, can he do something against Derek Stingley? Because I imagine it's going to go that way round. I wouldn't like to put Stingley on JMO either, to be honest, because Stingley's also not the fastest cornerback in the world, but he's got elite ball skills and he reads the game really, really well. If you can threaten their safeties, that might also be the best way to go at this game. I don't think much of either of them potentially. It's not the strongest, I don't think. But anyway, any more thoughts from you on the defense? Otherwise, I'm going to briefly talk about what I saw on tape against the Jets.
So for you, I agree with the JMO matchup. The one for me though is that our offensive line versus their defensive line, especially since, and again, I'm kind of borrowing a bit from Eric's very good article on this on the schemes. Highly recommend you always read them, especially since he's got access to next gen stats, which we don't, because again, NFL Pro is not available in the UK. But anyway, so it comes down to two things. The first is if our offensive line can get that push on our defensive line, which if some of their guys are out, it can do. That's bad news for them, because right now Houston is allowing about 3.5 yards after contact per carry, which is 30th in the league, and they have given up 35 runs of 10 plus yards, which is 28th. That sounds like a good stat for Sonic and Knuckles to come into. And then, if the offensive line can hold up in pass pro and pick up the blitz when necessary, because this year they're blitzing about a third of dropbacks, which is the fifth most in the NFL. If it can pick up that, which again, have faith it does. You've got Goff, who's very good at picking up the blitz this year and playing against it. You've got Ragnar, you've got Graham, Zeitler's coming a bit back into form. Penne's Penne, and then Decker hopefully will be able to hold up. But if you can hold up, then we've got open windows to attack, because they've given up the NFL high 19 passing touchdowns so far this season. And then, when they get into the red zone, opponents score nearly 70% of their trips, which is 30th. If the offensive line can just hold up their defensive line, which their entire defensive scheme is predicated on, it all falls apart because you can run the ball on them, you can pass it. They have no answer to either. And that's basically what we do. We attack you on the ground. And then, when you bring extra pressure, Goff does the thing I keep saying. He replaces the man with the ball. He just puts the ball in the perfect place for his receiver. And then they get you loads of yak. It's, again, I don't want to say it's the perfect matchup for us because with the Decker injury and with the way that Hideka, Graham, and arguably Zeitler have played in parts this season, there is some matchups for that defensive line to take advantage of. And then with Penne, he usually does quite well against power, which is what he's going to be faced with Daniil Hunter. But again, Hunter's played against Penne a couple of times. He knows what he's facing here. They might be able to get some joy against us, especially since they're one of the best pressure teams in the league. So depending on who you ask, PFR say they're tied for third with us. Next Gen Stats say they're first. They can get some joy, but if we can just hold up their defensive line on 2/3 of plays, we should be able to get some good push against them.
Many thanks for the $2 super chat by Street Runners Society, who says, Texans fan here, issues in Houston offensive line. Absolutely. We discussed the offensive line at length, talking about the offensive side of the ball for Houston for sure. Just coming back on what you said, I think that's a really fair point about our offensive line on their defensive line and running the ball generally. So, Will Anderson is the best run defender of the front four. He's got a 76.7 grade. The other starters are Hunter. He's got a 62 grade. You have then got Tim Settle, 40.6, and Foley Fatukazi, 36.4. The player who's going to come in for Will Anderson, if he doesn't go, is going to be Derek Barnett, who I thought at the Eagles was a good run defender, but he's only graded out at a 56.7 this season. So they have no one rated as basically good this season against the run if Will Anderson can't go. So in run blocking, can our offensive line manhandle them? Because you know the way that we like to run the ball in the complicated schemes that we use and complicated blocking structures. We could wreck them that way, potentially, if it works out. So fingers crossed for that. Observations from the Jets game. Every single third down was a blitz. Almost every single one from Houston. I haven't checked the stats. This is purely observational. But it seemed like they brought at least 5 every single time that they could. It was really, really strange. And actually, the back-breaking touchdown to Devontae Adams was when they were down 4. And it was a blitz on third down, which Rodgers knew was coming, and picked out Devontae Adams on a timing route, which he walked in for a touchdown. But that was happening all game, and the fact that it happened basically on every third down allowed Rodgers to get into a rhythm on third down. They knew what was coming, and they schemed up against it, and I can think that you'll see Goff, who's excellent against the blitz. Let me make no qualification about this, or qualms about this whatsoever. Jared Goff is very, very good against the blitz. So if they do this, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But their third down blitzes were actually very, very successful in this game. Early on, there was a big sack by Autry on the left-hand side. They brought a 6-man blitz on another third down, which was successful. They allowed Breece Hall some yards up front early. The Jets actually blocked kind of like us in this game, which I thought was really interesting. Their linebackers, though, so quick to react to screen passes. They see it so well. If Ben Johnson gets a bit tricky trying to throw wide receiver tight end screens or anything like that, expect them to get blown up pretty quickly. They get burned by the Malachi Corley touchdown, which he ended up dropping at the 1 yard line. But that was an end around, not unlike what we've seen from JMO in the past. Will we bring out that play? You're damn right we're going to bring out that play, because if they can't stop that on tape last week, and that's what a play we like to run with JMO, let's just try it and see what happens. I can see us doing at least one of those. Hewitt, I thought, had a good day at linebacker, as I said. they often bring a blitz anyway, and he was the linebacker that they were trying to bring. And actually, one of the other things they did was a lot of their blitzes that weren't on third down were delay blitzes, bring 5 or 6 from the linebacker position where they wait a second or two and then go, allowing the kind of quarterback a false sense of security. One thing they did was kind of shoot themselves in the foot quite a bit. So late on in the game, when they were trying to get a turnover, just before the touchdown, actually, to Devontae Adams, it was 4th down. They missed the throw, but Derek Stingley committed an illegal contact penalty to give a new set of downs, and then they ended up getting a touchdown to win. So, this team does sometimes bring it on themselves, which isn't great. And just to give you the update on their special teams, so they benefited from roughing the punter early. They punted the ball away and he got hit. Tommy Townsend looks like one of the best punters in the league every time I watched him. So I thought it was great at the Chiefs. Observation about him really is that he's not the longest punter in the world in terms of how far the kicks go. But he does have a knack of getting some really good hang time. So they cover it well as well. Their gunners are very quick on the outside. Do not expect return yards by Khalif Raymond if we do get them in punting situations. I just think you're going to see us fair catch it a lot. I don't think they're going to outrun the coverage. So, well-drilled special teams unit on punt. They also really are aggressive in terms of punt block. They try and go after a block every single time. And they got close a couple of times against the Jets. And there were plenty of punts in this game. Kaimi Fairbairn had an awful day. Really good, highly rated kicker, especially from 50 plus. Missed a 56-yarder wide right, which never was on target. Then made a 54-yarder to retake the lead late in the third quarter. They benefited from a made field goal with a personal foul on touching the long snapper. So they took 3 points off the board. And then they missed the subsequent field goal later in the drive from 27 yards. And that 27-yard field goal had no issues with snap or hold. It was just Fairbairn missing it from 27, even though he got it from like 40 earlier in the drive. That field goal, when the Jets then go down and get a touchdown, that field goal initially would have put them within a score, so that when they took the field goal late on third down and goal from the 18 after a sack, it was an 8-point game if they'd had that field goal, and they would have had 2 tries from the 18 to get a 2-point try to tie the game. So, Fairbairn really, I wouldn't say cost them the game, but that field goal didn't make things easy, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. And missing the 56-yarder is just uncharacteristic of him. He has the odd miss, but that and then the 27-yarder, not great. But all in all, I do think this is a good special teams unit, especially on punt. So, that's that. We've talked about key matchups, so I think all we have to do is talk about score prediction. But first, we've got another $5 super chat from Street Runner Society saying, the only players in Houston that are up for questioning is Nico Collins and Will Anderson. All the other starters in defense will start. So who did we have that we were saying did not practice? Foley Fatukazi, Jake Hansen obviously isn't a starter. And then other players limited in practice, Aziz Al-Shayes, he'll probably go. Jimmy Ward, he'll probably go. Interesting to see if Jeff Okudah goes, because if he's limited in practice having the clock started, he could if he gets activated. Derek Barnett, I'm guessing, is the one who's going to start in place of Will Anderson if he can't go. And I think they said high ankle sprain, or rumoured from Jimmy Liao, MD, from the Detroit Lions podcast, saying rumoured high ankle sprain, need to have practice ramped up. Therefore, if he's not practicing now, likely he'll be out for the game. Designations will obviously be 24 hours from now in terms of doubtful, questionable, out, what have you. So we shall see soon enough. But I think you might be right, Street Runners, in your assessment there. And thank you once again for the super chat. Much appreciated. Ash, time for some score predictions, man. What do you think is going to happen in this game, and what's the score going to be?
Well, as I hinted at earlier, in the preseason, I was predicting a shootout here. I was thinking Mahomes versus Goff a couple of years back, where each team was putting up like 50. It probably ain't going to be like that. But I can still see both teams scoring some points, but in the end, Lions are just better. I'm going to say 34 to the Lions, and then 21 to the Texans. So we won by 2 scores, roughly.
I said before we went live on the audio pod that there was no chance of us losing this game. And I'm going to hold to that. So I think this is a game where we actually get a huge amount of pressure where things just start coming good. I think this is an Aleem McNeil game, if ever I've seen one in the interior of the offensive line. I can see him tearing stuff up. Offense is going to be really interesting for the Lions. So can we control the ball, run it out, run the clock? I think it's a low-scoring game. I think there'll be a few punts in this. And I think that both teams are going to try and run the ball and not go to the air too much. Stroud, I think he is struggling. And with that offensive line, if you can run block well, just run the ball. Like, don't pass block if you don't have to. I'm going to say I think this game is a one-score game, but I think it's going to be 20-13.
Oh, I can't complain at that. It'd be nice and easy for me to clip up like this week.
Yeah, maybe so. All right, guys, in the chat, what do you think the score is going to be? Ken says, I had Detroit 29, Houston 24 in preseason, but now I figured a score over 33-ish. Granddaughter says, not only score predictions, but Lions player of the game in win. I mean, I've given mine already.
For us, you know what? Penny. I don't think against Daniel Hunter, one of the best pass rushers in the league, Penny will not give up a single pressure, and he will also grade out 90 plus in run blocking from PFF.
I'd love to see that. That would be really, really cool. All right. So let's go around the rest of the league and talk about what the scores are going to be there. And first up, we have Thursday Night Football, which is in 2 hours' time. We've got Bengals at the Baltimore Ravens, and I really should have the spread up because that's more useful to me. The Ravens are favoured at home by 6. What do you think?
Ooh, see, I do really want to pick the Bengals. I do love the Bengals, but the Ravens are just too good, aren't they? Like Lamar, if Goff doesn't get the MVP right now, I'm giving it to Lamar. They've got Derrick Henry's just on a bloody tear, ain't he? And they've just traded for Deontay Johnson last week. He didn't do too much last week, but now with a 4-week, a bit more tight practice with Lamar, with teams focused on Zay Flowers, because Zay Flowers is one of the best slot receivers in the league, not named Amon-Ra St. Brown. And with the Bengals defense just not being it, they've got Trey Hendrickson and not a lot else there. I can just see the Ravens winning and covering the spread.
So in this game, T. Higgins is doubtful, Charlie Jones is doubtful, Eric All is now on IR. The Ravens have activated Keaton Mitchell. It's Keaton Mitchell season, baby. Can't wait to see that. But Brent Urban, the defensive end, and tight end Isaiah Likely are both out. And then Jalen Amor Davis is doubtful. So both sides have some injuries to deal with. I think that the Ravens are going to run away with this one. The Bengals are a very flawed team with something to hang their hat on. And Burrow is dealing. I mean, Burrow is in the form of his life right now, but he's doing it in adversity. Whereas Lamar is in the form of his life, and he's not doing it in adversity, which is elevating him even further. I'm going to take the Ravens to cover that 6-point spread. Next game up is Giants at the Carolina Panthers, and the Giants are favoured by 6.5 points on the road. Ash, what do you think?
I'm going to go a bit spicy. The Panthers, after their win last week, with Bryce Young kind of looking a bit more like the Bryce Young we saw in Bama, and with Trevor Hudbird lining his pockets with some nice fresh money. We saw what happened to our running back when we paid him in the middle of the season. I see the Panthers upsetting the Giants. Give me the Panthers, and give me the Panthers covering the spread.
I am going to take a Giants win, Panthers cover. I do think the Panthers are going to come out with some momentum for this, but I think the Giants are a better overall team. And you know what? Dable is fighting for his job, whereas, Carolina are not. And I really do like Chuba Hubbard. But, the Giants have also got Tyrone Tracy and Malik Neighbors, as well as Daniel Jones. And Tracy and Hubbard is maybe a wash, I don't know. But Neighbors is far better than anything that Carolina have as a wide receiver. And Daniel Jones is a better quarterback. I think that low-key Daniel Jones has had an okay season, actually. It's just that he's had to do it in awful circumstances. And he's not a good quarterback, but I think he's done okay. So, that's why I think they won't cover it, but I think they will win. I'm not touching that game for betting purposes. Next game up is the Patriots at the Chicago Bears. Bears favoured by 6 at home. What do you think?
Again, Drake May came so bloody close last week to continue in the Honolulu flu sort of curse in the opposite teams, but overtime happened. Again, continues that form on and vindicates me a tiny bit by saying he was the QB1 in last year's class. Give me the Patriots with Gerard Mayo kind of fighting for his job there potentially. May just about grinds it out against a good Chicago defense. But the Pats defense comes back and it kind of flashes what we used to see against Caleb, who continues to flame out under that poor OC, who perhaps is going to find himself in the dole queue at some point soon.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Bears offensive coordinator getting fired after this game, no matter what. But I do think the Bears are going to win and cover. I love Drake May. I think he's fantastic. But the Bears are better on offense, they're better on defense, and I'm not sure whether they're better coached or not, but they might be. So, that's not a good recipe for success for the Patriots. The Patriots do have the best running back in the game, though. Ramondre Stevenson's absolutely fantastic. The Bears have room to deal away a running back because they're so deep in the room, but they don't have the elite top-end guy, and Ramondre Stevenson is an absolute tank, shall we say. I really like him. So, yeah, give me the Bears, unfortunately. Next up is Bills at Colts. Bills favoured by 4 on the road, Ash.
The Bills troop on. I know Keon is a bit questionable right now after the hit last week, but with them discovering a great running back duo with James Cook and Ray Davis, with that defense being just good enough, and then Josh Allen playing pretty damn good football. He's only thrown 1 interception so far this season, up there for MVP stuff, against a Colts team which is in 3-4 right now. Bills win, Bills cover, simple.
Yeah, I have the Bills winning and covering as well. I mean, when you're starting Joe Flacco against this Bills defense that's really stood up this year, and, also, you've got to go up against Khalil Shakir. Good luck. He's been absolutely fantastic. So give me the Bills. 4 points is an absolute gift in this game, to be frank, against the Colts team that's really struggling. And to be honest, their season's dead. Like, even though they're second in the division, they've been swept by the Texans, who are 2 games ahead of them. 3 games ahead, 2.5 games ahead of them. So if the Colts don't start winning a game here or there, they're dead. And the Bills are just much better. So, yeah. Next game up is Vikings at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Vikings favoured by 7 on the road. Ash, what do you think?
Wow. If T-Law wasn't injured, I might have predicted differently. But since they'll probably be starting CJ Beathard and Bigsby's hurt slightly, he's been shown questionable on my sleeper app because I've got him in fantasy. Unfortunately, give me the Vikings to win and probably to cover.
Yeah, I'm taking the Vikings to win and cover as well. Brian Thomas is banged up. He's probably going to go, but he's going to be slightly hurt. Gabe Davis is slightly hurt. the backup running back behind Bigsby, Dearness Johnson, is also questionable. I know that obviously they have the other one as well, Travis Etienne. But, Vikings are just a better team. And the Jags should give up on the season at this point. And, Doug's fighting for his job. But 7 points is not enough for the Jags, I don't think. Next up is Denver Broncos at the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are favoured by 8 at home. Ash, what do you think?
I'm going to hedge my bets here in a way. I know, I've said this last couple of weeks. I can see the Chiefs' undefeated reign ending in the next couple of weeks, which gives all the people saying that we're not the best team in the league, the Chiefs are, no more ground really to stand on in their stupid takes. But with how they played last week, they might just be just a bit too good for the Broncos. So give me the Chiefs winning, but the Broncos to cover.
Chiefs have started to wake up. Travis Kelce had himself a day. If he's in that sort of form or getting there, then it's going to be really hard for Denver. And I really hate that Kareem Hunt can just come in and look good. It really annoys me, but they've got some workable play on the ground coming in, only... Was it halfway through the season so far that he came in off the street, and he's got 111 carries already, which is more than Javonte Williams has on the season on the other side. And he's got 5 touchdowns. Man's just good at football. And Mahomes, after a shaky start, has kind of warmed up to the season a little bit. I don't think 8 points is enough. Nix is going up against a defensive coordinator that just takes advantage of rookie quarterbacks. You saw it in the reverse fixture, which was not that long ago. Am I thinking of something else? No, I'm thinking of someone else. Who did the Broncos play recently? Broncos lost to the Ravens 41-10 in the last game. And that was a team awful in pass defense, and they couldn't do shit. Give me the Chiefs to cover them 8 pretty comfortably. Next up, Falcons at Saints. Falcons favoured by 3.5 on the road, Ash.
Honestly, if you put a 1 in front of that 3, I'd still take the Falcons to win and cover. The Saints are just fucked at this point, to put it bluntly, to the point where even the Pope is trolling them on Twitter at this point. Give me the Falcons to win. Give me the Falcons to cover. Give me the Saints to just crash and burn.
Yeah, blessed be the Saints, but unfortunately, their season is done. And not only that, they just look bad doing it. Olave is doubtful after the hit last week, and prayers up for him because he has just had an awful time of it since coming into the league. Such a good player, but man, does he just get hit. Kamara's playing well, though.
Mm-hmm. And Taysom Hill.
Yeah, but the Saints also dealt their best defensive player in the trade deadline, so that's also not great. I'm also taking the Falcons. 3.5 points seems like a bit of a gimme. ESPN Analytics has this as a 52-48 game. I just don't understand. I did wonder if it would be an interesting thing to do all year, where you put £2 on every game, and you put it on the side of the spread that ESPN Analytics thinks you should put it on. So if it's a... so this game is 8-5 in favour of the Saints. So with them at 48%, that's a bigger percentage than 8-5. Therefore, you take the Saints on the spread. And then I look at this game and I think, the hell? The actual hell? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So thank God I haven't been following that. Right. Next game up is San Francisco 49ers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The 49ers are favoured by 6 on the road. Ash, what do you think?
Tampa already down their top 2 receivers, and their next 2 are both questionable for this game the last time I looked, with Sterling Shepard and Jalen McMillan. And with their running game dipping recently, I just don't see how the Bucs are gonna, move the ball really. And with the possibility that CMC will finally be suiting up for the first time properly this season, the Niners could absolutely blow away the Buccaneers. So give me the Niners to win, and right now give me them to cover.
Yep. The other players questionable for the Buccaneers include Vita Vea and Baker Mayfield. Just saying.
Great.
Yeah, give me the 49ers to win and cover. 6 seems way too low. Just to answer the chat on some things about the Lions game, Rich Baldwin says, I heard a couple of weeks ago that the left tackle for the Houston Texans, Laramie Tunsil, leads the league in false start penalties. Just to comment on that point before the next thing you say, I'm pretty sure Laramie Tunsil leads the league in false start penalties since he came into the NFL. He's had a consistent problem with it since he was drafted. He's very, very bad at it. He tries to time the snap and tries to predict when it's going to get snapped rather than actually looking for it. And it just means that he kind of leans... I saw it a lot on tape against the Jets. He leans back in his stance and then jumps and does that before the play's going off. So he could get pings for a false start every single rep. So it just depends how zealous the officiating crew is wanting to be. He then says Zadarius Smith should feast on Sunday night. I mean, I think he should anyway, to be honest, but we shall see.
Oh God, yeah. Right now, so this I'm looking at now. So far this season, 9 games, 9 full start penalties, 2 holdings, and a decline. 1 decline. So he's had 13 penalties so far this season, which ain't exactly great.
So in his career, which has been 9 seasons, including this year, he has 91 penalties, with 6 more negated by not being accepted. So he's 97 flags in his 9-year career, 8.5-year career. Worth mentioning as well, one of those years was hit by injury, so it's actually an 8-year stretch. So crazy how many times he gets penalised. Anyway, let us move on. I'll deal with some of the other questions later. Last game in the early slate is Pittsburgh Steelers at Washington Commanders, in maybe the most interesting game of the early slate. The Washington Commanders are favoured by 2.5 at home. Steelers obviously have restocked through the trade process, so have the Commanders, taking Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints. Jane Daniels in the form of his life. Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the grittier teams out there who've really found their rhythm and actually have something to hang their hat on offense. Ash, what do you think? Because I haven't got a clue.
I really don't either, which is why I'm kind of going my heart here with the better offense straight up. So I'm taking Commanders to win, but because it's so close, I'm going to take the Steelers on the spread to kind of hedge my bets a bit. I can see this game going any which way, and that's not fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm going to take Washington and to cover the spread, but I don't feel good about it. Daniels in the form of his life. Terry McLaurin has come to life for the first time in what seems years. I've always known he's a wide receiver 1. He just hasn't really shown it for a while. That's exciting. So that's what I want to happen, even though Washington are our biggest rival for the NFC right now. I'm kind of pulling for them, having got rid of their owner and all the bad juju's kind of gone. It's just a nice story.
Not all of it.
Okay.
There's still some. I want Ben Johnson to see them in NFC.
Yeah. That's fair. But the main source of cancer has been removed, even if some of the cells still remain.
Yeah.
I'm sure if Ant was here, he'd be shouting at us for not taking the Steelers because they're just so good at what they do, and they're so well coached. But yeah. All right, we move into the afternoon window, the late game window, and we start with the Tennessee Titans at the LA Chargers. LA Chargers favoured by 7 at home. Ash,
give me the Chargers. Offense is coming to life. That defense is fucking amazing under Jesse Minter. And we saw what the Titans did against us, who are a competent team. Last week kind of doesn't count against the Patriots. And even then, it came really close. So against a team that actually knows what they're doing, kind of, give me them to win, give me them to cover. So LA to chalk up another win under Jim Harbaugh.
You know, Calvin really has a third of his yards against us.
Yes.
I'm taking the team that has the best wide receiver in this game. Slab McConkey, and I'm
I
taking
forgot.
the.
It took me a second there. You absolute.
I'm taking the Chargers to win and cover by 7. Like you said, the defense is really good, and actually Mason Rudolph has played low-key well. The Chargers are going to put pressure on him. He's not going to be able to escape the pocket as well. And you know what? Pollard has had a really good season so far, but the Chargers are really good at in run defense. And then J.K. Dobbins has been great for the Chargers running the ball, so they're the better overall team. And you know what? It's a Jim Harbaugh-led team. They're just well coached. So, yeah, Chargers. Next one is Jets at the Arizona Cardinals. Jets favored by 1.5 on the road, Ash.
I think the Jets got lucky last week.
Yeah.
So I give me Cardinals to win and give me them to cover. Like, what was it last week? They got the 3 players to have rushing touchdowns in the first half, first time since 1934. That rushing attack has just come alive with those 3 backs, with Kyler obviously able to run the ball. Marvin Harrison Jr. is still there. Trey McBride is one of the best tight ends in the league right now in terms of form. And the Jets, yeah, okay, Devontae Adams is there, A-Rod, but Brees Hall still hasn't worked out how to be a competent back as much. Braylon Allen's kind of fell off after his good start to the season. And that defense, I don't know. They have loads of good players, but it just isn't right now. So give me Kyler.
Yeah, I'm taking Kyler as well. So obviously they're going to cover the spread, but the offensive line for the Cardinals isn't great, and the defensive line is really good for the Jets, and that's what gives me pause. But, you know, Kyler kind of negates that a little bit. And, you know, can Rodgers pick apart this defense? That Cardinals defense isn't great. But there's just something about what Kyler's doing right now, and this team is the NFC West leader. You know, it's in their hands at this point, and if they can keep churning out games like this, that'd be good. You know, there's a lot of narrative about the Jets, about them being these really close one-score games, and they could easily be 6-3, and maybe they could, but I don't think they've done it with Rodgers playing particularly well. Brees Hall had a really slow start, it's kind of warmed up a bit, but he wasn't fantastic last week against the Houston Texans. Garrett Wilson has obviously been an absolute monster. The chemistry with Devontae Adams still isn't quite there yet for Rodgers, although isolated snaps here or there. But, you know, I want the Cardinals to win, and I think it's a toss-up. So the fact that I'm getting points, I'll just take the Cardinals. Last game in the late slate is the Eagles at the Cowboys in the NFC East grudge match. The Eagles are favoured by 7.5 on the road. What do you think?
Well, Dak's not going to be there because he's tore his hamstring off the bone. They can't run the ball. They've only got one good receiver now. And that defense still won't have Michael Parsons or Tank Lawrence. So give me the team that actually is starting to really warm up now. And if the Commanders start falling off, they're primed to take over. Saquon is, you know, hopping over forms backwards. Jalen Hurts has remembered he's actually a good QB. And that defense is doing just about enough, with Cooper DeJean showing why he should have been a first-round pick by the Packers, and they absolutely fucked up by taking Jordan Morgan. Yeah.
Oh, how we laughed. And we literally did laugh during the draft.
We literally did, yeah. We did.
Yeah, it was great. No one else in Ford Field was laughing quite as hard as we were. I don't think anyone was really aware of who he was, but we laughed very much.
The only time we laughed more was the Falcons pick, and that's because I saw it laugh and you were like, what the hell's going on? You saw it, you're like, oh. Yeah,
that was funny shit. Right, yeah, I am taking the Eagles to win and cover as well. 7.5 doesn't seem nearly enough. The Cowboys are done with their season, so why do they think they'll keep it close against an offense which has started to roll? Hurts looks like he's playing himself into form. Eagles, personnel-wise, are really, really good. The thing that will set the Eagles back is that their coaching is still atrocious. But yeah. I don't think that will hold them back in this particular game because it's not much better on the other side. We've talked about the Lions game already. It's a 3.5-point spread, as we've mentioned. We've both picked the Lions to win that game. That means that you have predicted them to win every game still this season, as far as I'm aware.
Yes.
So we go to Monday Night Football. That is the Miami Dolphins at the LA Rams. The Rams are favoured at home by 1. What do you think?
again, this is like, it's kind of like the Washington Pittsburgh game where I can see both sides, but I'm going with my heart. I'm going with the team that I know better and the one that, yeah, has had a load of injuries, but has just looked better overall so far this season. So give me the Rams and give me them to cover.
Yeah, I'm taking the Rams to win and cover as well. Jonah Jackson activated, Steve Avila activated. Suddenly that offensive line is looking a heck of a lot more healthy. Stafford has a bit more time to throw. Should really help against this Dolphins defense, which isn't great and is pretty banged up. And then Dolphins, Tua's back and starting to warm up, and Achan is starting to warm up. Hill doesn't look like himself right now, but Waddle is certainly firing on all cylinders. It's going to be a cracking match. This is a really good Monday Night Football, even though it's not maybe what they thought they were getting when they selected this one back at the start of the schedule release. But, the Dolphins are not out of things in the AFC because of how bad it is, but they need to go on a run. This is a good game to start. This isn't a matchup where they should be blown away. Much like the Bills game, where they didn't deserve to lose. So the Bills are just a damn good football team. But yeah, that is how I see that. I need to save all of these picks, and then I actually need to copy them to our league, because otherwise it's not going to count. Okay. What's that?
I've just discovered you could do player futures on Pick Watch.
Ooh. Interesting. Right, let's see if we've got any questions which I haven't been reviewing for. So, Ken asked whether, is Jalen Hurts the best of all of these Alabama quarterbacks? Odd how most are not making it. Which Bama quarterbacks did you list? I did not see.
Ooh.
I imagine that you
the ones I can remember, it'll probably be Mac Jones, Tua, Hurts, Bryce Young. Those are the ones off the top of my head I can remember that went to Bama.
Yeah, I would say.
And that's out of those, yeah.
Hurts or Tua is a really interesting question, because Tua is definitely a better passer. I don't think there's any doubt that Tua is a better passer, but Hurts is... I don't want to say a smarter quarterback in terms of pre-snap reads, because I think Tua's better at that as well. But protecting himself, knowing when to take off, being able to use his physicality in a way that befits his physical size. Hurts is someone you can rely on to play more games. And that means a lot of the quarterback position. So yeah, I'd probably take Hurts. But I'd think about Tua. What else do we have? Rich says Lions win 35-26. That's a lot of points against. Granddaddy says he's got the Rams against his own Dolphins 29-23 unless the Finns run up the middle all day long. That's a cheat code. The Lions showed the NFL how to beat the Rams. For sure. And then Granddad said it was Poy who cost the Finns that game with a stupid penalty. I mean, it wasn't unlike our own Brian Branch. That hit. So, yeah. Anyway. Right, that is going to do it for our show. Many thanks to everyone for watching. Our next episode is going to be the live reaction show for Sunday Night Football. Are you with me, Ash, for that one?
Yep.
All right. We're going to be calling our play-by-play. So if you get sick of the commentary and would like to hear us amateurs give it a go, then do come and join us for that, which will be great. Review is going to be on Monday night, and then the preview for the following game is going to be on a Friday, because I am not here on Thursday. So watch out for a schedule change next week. Otherwise, hope you enjoy your weekend of college football on a Saturday, which is going to be fantastic, and then the Lions on a Sunday. It's going to be great. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Follow us on our socials. You guys know what to do. Ash, great to do this as always. Thanks for everyone on the live chat. We'll see you soon. And hopefully the Lions maintain the NFC lead. Let's go, Lions, one pride.
One pride.
Recording stopped.